the full screen option is something that I would recommend for today's session, so you can fully get the video, because I know it becomes a pretty small video if you've got all of the icons up on the screen. So today I'm on campus, the New Westminster campus, and so I would like to acknowledge that on the New Westminster campus, we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Kakite and Musqueam nations and other Coast Salish nations that surround this area and have overlapping territories. And for today's session, I just started recording it as well. Sharifah's agreed that we can record the session to share with anyone that might be missing today or was hoping to attend. And I did send out this morning as part of my email PDF attachment of a Starblanket that you could print out. And as I said, if you've got the materials in your home office, or if you're on campus in your office here, feel free to use those and whatever colors that you might have. If not, at least maybe you can pull up and access the PDF that I sent so that you can use the Starblanket design as a reference throughout the presentation itself. One of the other things in terms of the land acknowledgement is that all this week throughout the sessions I've been encouraging everyone that's attending to use the chat function and acknowledge which territory they're currently on. So whether they're on campus or whether you're at your home office or wherever you're connecting from, please use a chat function and situate yourself. And as I've been saying this week, if you know the territory, please share that. It's nice for everybody to see how you situate yourself. And if you don't currently know the territory, then I encourage you to find out, so that when you're asked about that you know where to situate yourself from. And then I think one of the last things for me to mention before I pass it to Sharifah is, because I know everybody's, we just hit 20 participants, that everybody's mics are muted, and you probably can't unmute it for questions. Please use the chat function. I'll be monitoring it throughout Sharifah's presentation. If any questions come up or anything's unclear, please let me know, put it in the chat, and I'll facilitate that with Sharifah. We'll also leave a little bit of time at the end for any questions that have come up throughout the presentation, so I encourage you to use that chat function. And I'm really happy to have Sharifah Marsden join us today and share these teachings around the Starblanket. If you had a chance to read what I put in the email, we have commissioned Sharifah to create a mural for the JIBC on the New Westminster campus. So it's a great opportunity for people to meet the artist, so that when you do eventually see the mural, you've met Sharifah, you know what she looks like and the kind of artwork that she does. So I think that's it for my introduction, and I'm going to pass it over to Sharifah. Thank you, Sharifah.
Thank you, Jason. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for joining us and for taking time out of your day to sit in on the teachings for the Starblanket. Second of all, I would like to acknowledge that I am presently situated on Coast Salish territory of both the Seashell and Squamish First Nations, also known as Roberts Creek on the Sunshine Coast. This is my broadcasting from my studio in home, and I'm Sharifah Marsden. My background is Anishinaabe on my mother's side and English on my father's side. I belong to the Squamish Island First Nation in Ontario. I utilize my knowledge of the woodland style of art, as well as my experience with traditional beadwork and regalia. And I put these things into my art practice, creating paintings and jewelry and murals, and I also teach art. And I've been doing that for probably the past 20 years altogether, professionally. So a little bit about myself is I graduated in 2009 from the Northwest Coast Jewelry Program at the Native Education College. And in 2015, I graduated from the Goldsmith Program at Vancouver Metal Art School. And in between that, I've been doing murals and collaborating on murals for many years. A couple of them is the Eye of the Raven mural for the Vancouver Native Housing. That was in 2010, and it's on Patricia and Hastings Street. And also there's Honoring Our Women for the Native Education College in 2016. Unconditional Love for the Vancouver Mural Festival in 2017. And on Hastings in the downtown east side, we did a collaboration for the Memorial Starblanket. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it's right on East Hastings and Abbott Street. Also, in 2018, I became the instructor for the Northwest Coast Jewelry Arts Program at the Native Education College. And this is while I was pregnant, and that same year I became a mother. So today I'm just working full-time as a mom, and I'm an entrepreneur a second, and I work establishing my art business and jewelry online from home. Okay, I'm just going to go right into the Starblanket teachings and the meaning. This is a piece that I just finished a little while ago, actually. More detailed version of the Starblanket. So, let's see. Many First Nations people across Turtle Island, which is North America, make Starblankets. These are utilized as highly valued gifts to honor people for significant accomplishments in their lives, like graduations, weddings, or birthdays, or even like births or some other celebrations like that. Sorry, bear with me. I'm just learning through this process. This is my first Skype presentation, and it'll get better as it goes. Originally, these star blankets would be made of buffalo wool and other hides. These were the kind of blankets that were given like back in the day, but now we don't really have access to buffalo and the goats and the animal hides. So we use the star blankets and we make them at home with like cotton and polyester in different colors and to create these blankets. So the symbol is the six-pointed star. It represents the creator of all living things. Originally, the six-pointed star represented a biblical meaning of the Star of David, but in more modern times, this image has been adopted and now represents a symbol for First Nations spirituality. Personally, I have been using star blankets for a few years in both jewelry, murals, and paintings. If anyone has any questions right now, you can ask. Or clarifications or anything like that.
I think we're all good. Sharifah, you're doing well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is my belief too. Making a star blanket is sort of a ceremony. So when we create a star blanket, it's like a ceremony and it's healing for the person who creates it. It requires a person being in a peaceful state of mind, being able to focus on the details of the intricate design. Meanwhile, it's comforting to work with your hands and work with the soft fabrics. And the designer puts the love and good intentions into every part of the detail, from choosing the colors of the fabric, the type of fabric, and to measuring and cutting, and then into each and every stitch until the piece is completed. All this good energy and love and focus is put into this handmade piece. And when it is received, the person who receives it is there is a transfer of love and good energy. There is also a pride in creating a star blanket by hand because it takes so long, and there's a gratitude that is given when it is received. The gifting is uplifting to both the person that is giving it and to the person who receives it, the person who is being honored at the time. And that is the ceremony of gifting the star blanket. So I made a star blanket printout that you can use, and you can fill in color, and it's for all ages. Anyone can do it. You can choose your color, and some of these colors that you choose can symbolize an object or even like a feeling. I did a little coloring. I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so this one is for, I'm just going to check okay, there's my video. Okay, so this one is all the colors of the sun that I chose. And so this is like a sunrise meaning for this star blanket. But you can do blues, maybe for the sky, say, or you can do different colors for different movements. So if you want to talk about different things like this one behind me, this was more about healing and grieving loss of loved ones. And so the colors that I chose were more down-toned, like there's off whites, grays, and oranges and browns in there, just to create the feeling, kind of a mellow, comforting feeling. You can also put your favorite colors in there. And I got my son, he's 2, and I got him to fill one in. And there's no wrong way, and there's no wrong color. And it just kind of brings people together. And so once you finish your star blankets, they're going to be collected at the Institute, and they're going to be displayed on a wall, hopefully together. And this will be a symbol of all of us gathering together, of all of us creating together. Even though we are apart during these complex times in our histories, we are still all connected. And this is kind of like a symbol of what we are doing right now. Does anyone have any questions?
No, it looks like we're good for the moment.
Okay. That's going really fast, actually, sorry. So I can talk about how to design a star blanket. So the one behind me, you can't necessarily see the details of the middle, but yeah, I broke it down. So this one is basically how I started the star blanket. You do a horizontal line first to find your middle, and a parallel, or say a diagonal and horizontal line first. And then you find your center. And that center is where all of the design comes from. So that's the most important part. And then you have your diagonal lines right here that go across to make the X. So those are your foundations. Your first 2, and then your second 2. And then once you do that, then we're going to break it down into how do you get that diamond shape. It's not necessarily a diamond, it's more like a slanted diamond. And once you break down this little shape, it's basically the whole design is all of these shapes just repeated over and over. And so this is a bigger blown up version. So it's just 1 centimeter. On here, this is 1 centimeter. So 1 centimeter across, 1 centimeter diagonal, and 1 centimeter across, and another diagonal. So that creates your slanted diamond. And it just repeats over and over and over. So it's pretty simple, but it's a bit complex. It's just more repetitive too. It takes a lot of patience, but once you're done, you have a neat and tidy little star blanket. And then you can fill in whatever colors you want to do. Is there any questions?
I've got one question here.
Okay.
It says, do you, oops, got to read it here. Do you hand sew it, or is it by machine?
Oh, you can do either. Me personally, I
Yeah.
don't sew anymore because it takes so long. But to get it, I think it's easier to do it with the machine. It's faster, and it's easier to get the straight stitches.
Okay. Good. I was wondering, Sharifah, if you could maybe walk us through a little bit because, like you said, we're encouraging people to color their own, right?
Yes.
And choose and personalize it however they see fit. Could
Yeah.
you maybe like, given that most, if not all of us, haven't colored our own star blanket before, walk us
Oh, okay.
through like what that process would be. Let's say, like, can it be any amount of colors, or once you like, do you choose your colors first, or you just kind of go through the inspiration? And is there? I know you said that there's no right or wrong way um, to color it. But are there typical starting points for yourself? And just maybe
Oh,
walk us
yes.
through a
So
little bit.
when I do design a star blanket, after all the lines are laid out, I start in the middle. Always start in the middle because that is the center, and that's basically the source of energy too. So I chose red in the center. And then once you have established that first initial design, then you just create an outline with the next color. And when I use dark in the middle and then I go out and I use lighter colors as I go, and it creates kind of like a vibrancy so that it's a visual energy. So, and it also kind of draws your eye in. If that makes sense. But you can do this also with different hues, like different colors of hues are like dark to light of one color. So you can use a blue, a dark blue, a medium blue, a lighter blue, and a lighter blue. And that creates another vibrancy, and your eye will automatically be drawn into the center. But it's just really kind of going on an outline, and then going on the next outline, and then going on the next outline. And this can be, the background too can be part of the design, or it can be plain.
Okay, I've got another question here that came up. Um, if you were going to be uh, painting your own star blanket, is there any particular kind of paint that you would recommend that's easier to work with for this?
Well, I would definitely use, I like acrylic because you're going to be touching it a lot. It's not so good to use watercolor because watercolor can smudge. Acrylic dries really fast, and it's also the fumes are not as toxic as oil. Oil paint is and oil paint takes a long time to dry too. So I usually just always acrylic.
Or is acrylic? Okay, that's good. And when you're painting in your own star blanket, and I'm sure this might depend on the size, um, do you tend to do it in like one sitting, or do you space it out over time? What's
Oh
your
yeah.
approach?
Um, Definitely it takes for something this size, it takes a whole it took me a couple months, I think it was, or a few months.
Okay.
Um, because I did the design first, all in pencil on the canvas, and then at the same time I kind of took time out to decide what colors I was going to use, and I mixed all these colors by hand and kind of oh, my inspiration for these colors too was the old wall hangings, the old wool wall hangings that people used to have on their walls when we were kids. This is like 30 or 40 years ago. That everyone used to have these wool wall colors or wool wall hangings, and they were like these mellowed down colors, and usually oranges and browns. So I was trying to get back to that old school, I guess, time
Hmm.
um, in our homes and kind of create that feeling. Um, that changes the subject a bit, but
No, that's
I
really interesting,
did.
actually.
Yeah. So you can draw it from different inspirations. Um, what else was I gonna say? Okay, so once I mixed all the colors, I also matched them up to see which one kind of looked better together too, and then I would just do one set at a time. So maybe this was done one day, and then this would be done the next day, and then maybe this would be done the next day. And then because there's more diamonds as you go out, I would maybe do half one day and then half the next day. You know what I mean? And then half the next day, because it's better to use one color at a time instead of go out purple, white, gray, orange, yellow. I just do the one color and then the next color and then the next color. And you could also see a transition while you're painting or coloring in. You'll see, oh, it looks really nice when you have the first color. And then you have the second color. Oh, that looks really nice too. And that's kind of coming alive. And then the next set of colors, it's coming alive and being more vibrant. And so by the time you get to the outer colors, you have created this energy. And it's through the process of creativity too. You could see like, oh, I could have stopped here, but I wanted to see what this color and this color and that color would look like too. So.
Okay. Oh, that's great. I've got a couple more questions that are coming through.
Okay.
So one question is, if painting, do you tape off the lines for a crisp line?
You can, but I don't. Yeah, I like the challenge, but it also sometimes it depends on your level of patience too. Some people are really, they like taping off and they like painting over, they like that really clean line. And part of me, I wanted to make it more hand painted looking, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was a choice that I made, and I just made sure I took a little bit more time with the corners to make them a little bit neater, but it doesn't look completely perfect, which is what I wanted to go for.
Great. I got another question here. It says, when you're sewing it, do you sew it one row out and then sew them all together, if that makes sense?
Oh, yeah. So when you're sewing it, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be making strips, if that makes sense. So you're going to be making this panel here, like all of the strips as you go across, whether it's horizontal or vertical. And then once you make all of these strips together, then you would sew them together. So it would be like, this one. So you would make this set. So you'd sew these ones together first. And then the next row, you would sew those ones together first. And then once you have all the strips across, then you'd sew them together to make one. And I think when you do sew them together, before you start sewing, you would make a design so that you would know exactly, okay, which row am I making? I'm making this row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
You have kind of like a map of what to go by. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. And someone commented that it's kind of like you're quilting as well, right?
It is a form of quilting for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's that quilting tradition.
I do have a comment that they love the colors and it's a vibrant energy and very beautiful.
Thank you.
And another question is, have you ever tried like a tie-dyed star blanket?
I've seen them, but I haven't tried them.
Okay. So you've seen others trying that, eh?
Yeah, I've seen different designs of star blankets, and sometimes people are able to shift the star blankets. They'll take a portion of a corner and then make a totally different color sequence too. So
nice.
You can get really creative. I think a good inspiration is if you Google images of star blankets, you get a great variety of colors and designs and sizes, and yeah, that's one of my favorite things. I actually follow this group Starblanket on Facebook, and they're always posting their finished products, and it's just beautiful work.
Okay. That'd be a good Facebook page to check out.
Yeah,
Another question is, can this be used in beading, like to make a pendant?
for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So you could even use the Starblanket teachings at the printout, and
Yeah.
you can use this size, or you can shrink it down and use that for your beadwork.
Oh,
Because the Starblanket isn't my design, it's everybody's design, and anyone can use it.
okay.
Yeah, nobody owns the copyright to the Starblanket. Yeah.
Great.
And you just
Uh,
make it your own by how you decide to paint it, color it, create it. And that's what makes it yours.
okay, great. Well, the questions are just flowing in here now, Sharifah, which is great to see. Thank you, everyone. A couple more questions have come up. Do you use cotton fabric, or what would you recommend?
Um, yeah, well, favorite is cotton for sure. Um, it'd be good to get the cotton that's pre-shrunk, or you can get a cotton polyester blend, which won't shrink. That makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I'm just grabbing another question here.
And I think your thread should be polyester thread as well, because you don't want your thread to shrink and your fabric to stay the same, because then it all bunches up.
Oh, okay.
Polyester thread for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, Another question is there a place that you can recommend uh, where you could view finished products, like a gallery or something like that, that has star blankets
So like,
in it? Have you come across that at all?
yeah, to be honest, the only place I've seen them is at powwows, like some big powwows. Some of the um, ladies, like some of the elders, would go there and sell, but it's not very
Yeah,
common because it's usually gifted to family members, from family members to family members. It's not necessarily something you would get in a gallery.
yeah, no, that makes sense.
But
Yeah.
that's where the Facebook group, the Star
Mhm.
Blanket Facebook group, if you add that, you'll see a lot of artists putting up their pictures of their work. And I think if you wanted to order something from them, you could order. I've seen people sell on there too. So.
Okay, that's great. I think that is a good recommendation in terms of the powwow, though, too. Once we are able to have powwows
Yeah.
again in person, right?
It would
Uh,
be so amazing to go to a power right now.
yes, it would.
Hmm.
Be missing that this summer.
Yeah.
But when we do have the powwows going again, that is a great place to be able to see these different kind of forms. Because you're right, I've seen some at different powwows as well. So yeah, so thanks
Yeah.
for sharing that, and it's a good recommendation. Um, any other questions? Let's see. Um, okay, I think that might be it for the questions that have come in at the moment. Um,
Okay.
yeah, you can go to your next segment if you have one to go to.
Okay. So I just have some jewelry pieces that I wanted to show, pieces that I've made. So I'm gonna put my video on. Hold on a
Yeah.
second. Okay, so this is a brooch that I made, and it's a floral brooch, and I put a stone in it. It's called chrysoprase, and so the back of it has a little pin. You can see that. That's one of my more intricate kind of pieces. These ones are like one of a kind, rare pieces that I make. And this is a part of the matching set. This bracelet. I don't know if you can see
Okay.
the floral cutout design. And then I'm gonna have a chrysoprase stone put in there too, and it's gold overlay. Um, let me get to this. Makes me think I need to have a display. Okay, there. You can see this. This is like a little floral ring that I made.
Nice.
It's a little bit wider ring, and it's a silver engraved ring. And this is kind of an example of how I start engraving. So all the pieces are flat and they're put on jewelry pitch. This one is actually a locket that I can get from a wholesaler, and then so I don't make these. I could, but they take a long time to make. So you can put pictures in there, and then I just mount them on the the jeweler's pitch, and then I engrave on them with small engraving tools. And
Okay.
then this one, I don't know if you could see, but I have a design started, but it's not finished yet. Whereas this one is pretty much finished. So
Okay. Yeah.
that they're all flat when you start making them, and then you dome it out after. And this
Oh,
is another locket that I'm doing, but it only has an outline. Like I didn't do all of the cross hatching it on it.
oh wow.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
I can't see if you could see it.
I know.
Because my screen is like so small that I
I
can't tell.
know.
Okay.
I'm getting comments though that it looks really cool and really beautiful work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's more of my work if you wanted to see on the Latimer Gallery website, and Latimer Gallery in Vancouver. They sell a lot of my pieces, so
Okay. Great.
yeah.
And in terms of those different jewelry pieces, like what kind of time frame does it take for you to create these kinds of pieces?
Oh wow. Uh, it depends on how much detail, really. Probably. So this one, because I have a baby, it, I get like an hour here and there a day. This one took me an hour to work on the drawing first, and then it took me about half an hour to get the basic design engraved onto it.
Okay.
And then from there, it will take me maybe 2 to 3 hours to do all the cross hatching if I do it in one sitting. And then I'll have to go over, clean up all the lines, and that takes another hour. Then polishing and doming. So maybe about, if I had a whole day of 8 hours, I could probably do a whole pendant. Ideally, yeah.
But it always has to get
But
spaced out, right?
I have a little boss, so so I definitely have to space it out. And if it's say a ring like this, it takes a while to do the bending. So it starts off as a flat piece again. Let me see what I got here. So this is a bracelet that I was working on. So it's a flat piece and then I put on the pitch. But I cut it out first and then put it on the pitch. And then after that, I did a light engraving, and then I put an overlay. This is a gold overlay, so that takes another couple hours. And then I bend it. So I'll bend it, and then after I bend it, I can polish it. So this is not mine. This is my husband's. But so after you bend it, then it looks like a bracelet. But when you're working on a flat piece, you can't really recognize what it is.
Yeah.
There's a stone put into it. So you can do it plain bracelet, just engraved, or you can put stones on them.
Nice.
It just makes it a little bit more fun to put different colors in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Yeah, a question just came up. It's asking if you offer engraving training.
I was teaching for a while. I do want to return to teaching again. I don't do it yet, but I will for sure. I was thinking even online, maybe. As you can tell, I'm just getting used to this medium. But as I go, I would like to be able to teach online.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're doing well for your first tryout on online
Thank
version.
you.
Yeah, we'll be able to see a lot, and I think it is really interesting. I know it is for me, and presume it would be for others to get kind of a glimpse into your your jewelry making process, right? Like the time that's involved in it, like your starting point to the end point, because so often, whether it's in a gallery or at a powwow or um, just being given as a gift or something, we see the end result, right? And we can see that a lot of work must have gone into that creation, uh,
Mm,
but we only usually see the end, right? We don't see the process itself. So I really appreciate you sharing some of that process with us and how much time and energy and skill that it takes for you to make that kind of creation. And I presume that you also get requests for people to make specific things for them
yeah.
as well.
Yeah, I do get custom orders here and there. I find they definitely take me a little bit longer because it's somebody else's idea and vision, and they want me to create a work of mine out of their idea, which is sometimes really challenging. It's also challenging because I'm my worst critic, and I don't necessarily know if it actually looks good. Just because I think it looks good doesn't mean that it's going to
Yeah.
turn out. So I definitely have my own process I go through. And sometimes they like it, sometimes they want a little adjustment, and sometimes it's just bang on. It just depends. You kind of just go with the flow when you're doing something custom.
Okay.
Just like projects that you're like, if it's your first project in a certain area, it's always like you can never see how it's going to turn out. You just keep going and see at the end of it what it looks like.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting way to put it. I think in terms of like the custom orders is it's different if you are just creating your own vision, but if you are adapting someone else's vision, their request of what they're hoping you can create, then you really are blending what they're requesting with your own
Yeah.
spin on it, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about the jewelry or the star blanket or anything else you want to ask Sharifah while we have her online for at least a few more minutes?
Something I might add is
Yep.
also to when working on these custom orders or working on collaborative murals, which most of mine are
Hmm.
collaborative murals, is just being open and being aware that everybody's going to have their opinion and being open-minded about it. And sometimes you have to pick a driver to kind of set the boundary and then have people come in and put their input. Um, it is kind of good to have one boss, but, but the boss has to be kind of like the person who's like the main coordinator should be really open to other people's input and also open to conflict and open to resolving conflict too along the way because it all the murals that you see that are created in Vancouver, most of them are collaborations and it's all a collaboration of many minds that came together to get a little bit of each person's idea into one image is very, very challenging, but it also turns out to be really beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's the beauty and you create these bonds with people once you can overcome those conflicts and overcome the what do you call it, brainstorming part of it and you follow through, then you create these bonds with those people that are involved. And
Okay.
that's really beautiful, usually lifelong friendships.
Yeah, for sure. No, thank you for sharing that. I've got a couple of questions that have come up.
Okay.
Um, so, could you please share a story or stories of how you have included Starblanket's creation and teachings, like in a classroom setting? So, we're thinking about like how can you use these kind of teachings in that setting?
Um, Basically how I've done it. I would start with introducing yourself. I would start with making a star blanket,
Ah,
or
that's
at least designing and coloring one. So then you can kind of understand just even the process,
Mm-hmm.
applying the colors, and the process of how it develops, from the very first to the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I would go with teaching about the history and your history about Starblankets, and then the the teachings of the ceremony, of the gifting ceremony, because that's really important part of it. It's not necessarily that you make money off Starblankets. They're really, their purpose is gifting. Um, and yeah, just being open to other people's interpretation of it.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, do you find you can be more creative when doing the star blanket or jewelry?
Oh, good question. I think they both have their boundaries. I think they both have their limits. I do think that probably more freedom with jewelry than Starblanket, because the Starblanket is a structured already image,
Mm-hmm.
but you can have your creativity within that. I do like the meditation um of doing the same thing over and over and over. It's a soothing thing because it's predictable and it's comforting. Like you know what you're gonna do next. So like when you're painting, say the gray layer, you know that all the way around it's gonna be gray. And you can have the satisfaction of the parts that are done. And it just, as you add the second, the third, fourth colors, you just have another feeling of satisfaction. You're feeling a comfort. And also that the darkness and the lightness, your eye moving in and out of the Starblanket is comforting, and it's healing in itself.
Yeah. Oh, that
And
makes
you
sense.
definitely have to practice positive self-talk and positive intention when you're creating these pieces, because you're sitting there and you're focused and you're making this nice, neat, organized image. And that takes a lot of work in itself, just to sit there and be at peace with that.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Had another question come up that's prefaced as maybe this is too deep of a question, so this could be interesting, Sharifah.
Okay.
Um, do you see any emerging trends when it comes to Indigenous artwork?
Um, I see, uh, well, I guess in my own work right now, I see an attractiveness to go back and to create those older designs
Mm,
and create those traditional pieces of work. Because we went through this big, huge movement of contemporary art and contemporary movement of Indigenous art. And now I feel a nostalgia and a longing for those old pieces and those old visions, those old ways of doing simple works. I feel like that, maybe not everybody's movement, but I feel like that's what I'm attracted to right now.
yeah,
And I think going back to that and to those old pieces and those old styles of doing things, I think we can also learn from those things. That
yeah.
makes sense.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
And the person asking the question, thanks you very much.
Yeah.
Um, I was,
And I say for it, I say just do all the old traditional ways, and gather that knowledge, and then go out from there. And then if you come back to that the old ways, then, or if you just go in that genre, that's fine too. But I think to be Indigenous and to be an artist, I think it's important to go back to those old styles. You're practicing and teaching that's from older people, from an older generation, from the past. So when you practice those traditions, you're actually bringing that knowledge to yourself in today. That makes sense.
that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. A deep question got a deep answer.
There you go.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Yeah. Got me thinking too, Sharifa. Um, I was just thinking, because you're talking about like going back and origins and so forth. Do you recall when you did your first Starblanket and how you learned to do that, or what prompted that?
I really admired the image of the Starblanket, and I didn't know how to do it. It looked so overwhelming. And then I made myself sit there, and I started with graph paper,
Mm.
the math paper,
Yeah.
and uh, and I started to pick it apart with the math paper, and I tried different ways, and then I probably have the old sketch somewhere in my shelf, but then I started to play with the color of it, and then it just everything just clicked. But it just took a while because I didn't have anyone teaching me. I had to figure it out myself in my own head how to break down the design. And but in that, you basically are picking up those old teachings, the old knowledge of what people knew or what people know from making star blankets. You learn it as you do it.
Mm, that's great. Thank you. Any last questions? Anyone online have any final questions? I just have a comment that your words have been inspiring, Sharifah, and thank you. And that
Thank
we
you very
are
much.
and that we are longing for traditions for sure.
Yeah.
Mm.
There's a lot of richness in the old ways of doing things, and I think we can get them by doing them, really. Whether it's art or beadwork, whether it's through doing ceremony for the first time. I think we can get those things just by the experience of being involved in them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, and getting a lot of comments that that was well said, and that people have learned a lot, and it's been inspiring some people to be even more creative with their own styles of work, and
Thank you.
appreciation of the wisdom that you've shared today. I'm just reading comments as they come in.
Thanks.
A lot of people want to thank you that have participated in today's session. We're not officially done yet, but we are at 151, Sharifah. So,
Nice.
are there any? We've got a comment. Thank you for bringing joy, beauty, and knowledge through your work, and for gracing the world.
Thank you.
Um, did you have any final thoughts that you wanted to share, Sharifah, or anything that you wanted to reiterate about today's, or how you want to close off your own session today?
Definitely. No matter what process you take or how you approach the star blanket, as well as other things in your life, don't be so hard on yourself. Allow yourself to make mistakes, and also, allow yourself to learn about those things and be okay with how things turn out.
Mm.
Because, some things are meant to turn out a certain way, and that's why you're making the mistakes. And that it always comes around to the way you're supposed to do things and the way things are supposed to work out.
That's
And
great.
thank you for listening.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and teachings today. And everyone's putting in the chat, and you'll be able to see for yourself. So don't sign off once we're done, so you can read what people have put as well. But
Okay, thank you.
everyone's really thanking you for sharing today. And I just put my video back on briefly here for closing things off as well. And I want to thank you again, Sharifah, for guiding us through the Star Blanket teachings and what it's about, and the usage of colors, and even the personalization of Star Blankets, but also reminding us that it's about a gifting process, the creation itself. And some of the gifts that you share with yourself through the creation, but then a gifting of that to others as part of that ceremony. And also thank you for sharing about your jewelry and that process. That was some bonus kind of artwork for us to go through today, and hopefully everyone that has been online today. We did get up to like 26, 27 people joined us at the end of the
That's
day.
awesome.
That know that everyone's excited to see what kind of work you might be creating in terms of a mural for the JIBC. So I think that's very exciting prospect and what will be happening here as well, and the connection that we're building with you. So I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate everyone else's time that you've taken out of your day today to join us for Sharifah's session. It seems like people got a lot out of it, and that's great. And hope you join us for other sessions, and maybe we'll have to bring Sharifah back for another session in the future as you're going through these practicing, right?
It wasn't so bad.
Yeah, you got through it, and I think it went really well.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we can wrap up from there. Sharifah, you can stay online
Okay.
and read the comments as well, and I'll stay online as well as people sign off. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you. Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elder Ken.